Hi, I'm Angie Pruitt. I'm the assistant principal at Brooklyn Preparatory High School, and I'm one of the founding members.
My name is Erin Stark, and I am a ninth grade English teacher at Brooklyn Prep High School, and I am the anchor teacher on this Goldie Anna grant.
Hello, my name is Caroline Maurer. I am working with Erin Stark. I am the innovator teacher for our Goldie Anna grant.
It's important to note that the founding principal had a very specific vision for special education when she came to the school, when she started it, because it was inspired by the CTT model, and she felt it was the way to go. I think that there's been a lot of effort to get teachers to see special ed teachers as teachers and as instructional leaders, not just those who work with kids who have special needs. And I think as a result of that, the special ed teachers have worked hand in hand to really work on instructional goals in a grade team, in a classroom, not just for the students who have IEPs, but for all students. When the school was old enough that we had to make a decision on how the special ed teachers were going to be programmed, we had a decision to either just say they stay with the same students all day long, or they could work with a department so that they'd have to specialize in content. And we decided to have them specialize with content precisely because we wanted them to be specialists in that area. And we really felt that it was a disservice to the students and teachers alike to assume that a teacher really could understand all the content areas equally and support kids equally in all the content areas. It doesn't make sense. And if you were to ask them to sit in 5 different content areas, you would dilute that, and you would make it so that perhaps they would be working students only with skill and not with content knowledge. And we recognize in high school, particularly, that students, these are really the pruning years in terms of student understanding and knowledge. So it's really time for them to be able to think deeply about what they're learning.
My relationship with Erin is absolutely different than my other relationships. She has been the special ed teacher in the classroom before, and so she understands a lot of the challenges of being the special ed teacher in the classroom, because I don't just teach ninth grade, I teach other grades as well. So I cannot devote 100% of my time to ninth grade curriculum. I have other demands. I am required to keep up with my IEPs, which I have a very large IEP load, and trying to create really useful IEPs is a very arduous task. Additionally, I have to plan another curriculum. I work with another teacher, so I have to attend those meetings. I'm not on the ninth grade team. I'm on the 11th grade team, and so I'm required to attend 11th grade team meetings. This means that Erin, though, has to fill me in on what's happening with the ninth grade, because I am a ninth grade teacher as well. So having all of those different hats is really challenging. Trying to be in multiple places at one time is really challenging. And because I can't devote 100% of my time to our ninth grade class, I often get really frustrated. I get frustrated that I feel like I want to be present, wholly present 100% of the time, and it gets frustrating when I feel like I can't, because I also need to be 100% present in my 11th and 12th grade class. And last year I had to be 100% present in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. I also do literacy intervention.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to work with different personalities. And if you're asking a teacher to work with 3 different personalities in one day, and and to kind of mesh with 3 different teaching styles in one day, that's a lot. So I do believe you need to listen to your special ed teacher. And that's not to say that you don't look at the needs of the students in the school, but I think it's important to recognize that they have a very specific set of needs, and that it can be very emotionally and professionally draining to be spread so thin, and it is kind of thin, because they'll be working with multiple grades, multiple teachers in one day. It's something that the other teachers don't have to do. It's more. Mm-hmm. So you have to really listen to them and kind of read what they need and try to support them when they say they need supporting. Mm-hmm. Whether that's with supplies, whether that's with time, whether that's like, this new system is too much, I'm going to need a little bit more financial support because I'm going to have to be putting in a lot of extra hours to do this. I mean, it's important to listen. It's important to listen to.
So This is my 6th year teaching at Brooklyn Prep High School. The first 3 years I spent as a special education teacher. I collaborative team taught 9th through 12th grade ELA classes. And through that experience, I began to realize that each teacher that I taught with had a very different relationship with. And those relationships impacted the instruction that we gave in the classroom. And sometimes that was positive, and sometimes that was negative. And I felt that to really isolate what it was that would create a good partnership between two teachers in order to provide the best instruction for all of the students, we needed to boil that down to sort of like a team building model. And I looked to Bruce Tuckman's team development model in order to do this. And the core of his 4 stages are forming, norming, storming, and performing. And I use this as a framework in order to build my relationships with my co-teachers, as well as to create the instruction for the classroom. And the key of doing this for teachers is, A, you need to recognize that these relationships are very unique. Each one is going to be very different, but they all need to be focused on student outcomes. So we use some of the challenges of collaborative team teaching are, the first challenge is personalities, dealing with different personalities in the classroom and different teaching styles. Secondly, you're dealing with a classroom of all different types of learners. You have your kids who are labeled with the IEPs, and then you just have general ed kids who just learn differently. So learning how to really meet the needs of all the kids in the classroom, and then agreeing with another teacher on how best to meet all the students' needs are definitely, I think, 2 of the biggest challenges of creating any sort of successful collaborative team teaching relationship. Tuckman's model of team development has been incredibly useful in developing my relationships with my co-teachers, because in the forming stage, we're able to really just sort of like dump all of our ideas and philosophies around instruction onto the table, come into, like flesh out what we agree on, what we disagree on, what our classroom needs to look like, how it needs to be run, and then really come into agreement on that, and then start out the year with that solid foundation. And then, just like anything, you have to keep revisiting it. Like, did this work? How do you feel about that? Am I doing things the way that I thought that I would do them, or the way that I said that I would do them? You have to have those conversations frequently throughout the school year to help norm what's going on in the classroom. Otherwise, you just get carried away, and then one person takes on one role, and then they just stay in that role, and the other person takes on another role, and they just stay in that role, and they never sort of realign those positions. So the norming and the storming phase really allow us to do that. We get to revisit all of the goals that we set at the beginning of the year. In addition, because we also set goals for student achievement, once the year gets started and we're a few months into the year and we've collected data on the kids' writing and the different goals that we set, we can then look at the numbers and say, all right, well, where are our kids in terms of meeting, at least a 3 or higher on the meaning portion in the ELA rubric. And because that's our goal for the kids this year. So where are they at with that? Oh, they're getting 1s and 2s. Okay, well, let's look at what they're writing. Like, let's go back and look into their writing. Where's the breakdown happening? All right, what kind of lessons can we create around that? And those conversations end up leading to a lot of the curriculum development that then happens in all of the co-planning sessions. So on top of, taking time to revisit like all of the goals we set at the beginning of the year, we're also meeting on a weekly basis to plan a good week in advance. So I think the biggest key to having a successful co-teaching relationship, aside from setting aside specific times to reevaluate on benchmarks, is to have things planned at least a week in advance. So we'll spend an hour, 2 hours after school, 1 day a week, getting everything planned for the following week. Now, does that mean every little lesson, every little handout is planned and created? No. We create a big to-do list, like a skeleton for the upcoming week, and then we assign it to each other. and then we're each responsible for creating or doing those items and then getting it to the other person so that we can look it over before it's used in the classroom. And because we've taken the time to, be a week ahead of ourselves, there's plenty of time to do that. And I think that that is one of the biggest keys to making our lessons not just good, but great. And taking the time to do all of that planning together obviously builds a lot of trust between the partnership, and it also has, we have a shared understanding of where we want to go with the curriculum.
So because the teachers collaborate often with one another, students are able to get the attention that they need. Nothing goes unnoticed in our classroom because we spend so much time working out lessons, creating materials, talking about student needs, student progress. And I think that it really makes for a fantastic learning environment for the students. We are very rigid in our goals. We are very rigid in the way that we manage the classroom. And so because of that, because there's two of us to create that learning environment, I truly believe that the collaborative team teaching is extremely beneficial for all of the students in the classroom. Constant communication. I think that really helps. That is one of the reasons that our relationship has worked, that our teaching team has been effective, because we are in constant communication with one another. And she always looks over everything that I create, and I always look over everything that she creates. We create lessons together, which is extremely beneficial for the students, because she's not, a lot of times, the general ed teacher would create a lesson and simply give it to the special educator to modify for the students that need the support. But we don't do that. We decided that we would be able to create differentiated lessons to reach every single learner in the classroom as long as we collaborated constantly and we created the lessons together. And so we have stuck endless amounts of time this year creating those differentiated lessons and that differentiated material. Tuckman's steps of forming, storming, norming, and performing to kind of frame our meeting time. And we have specific meetings where we need to discuss specific things at certain points of the year. And because we are trying to follow that model of team development, it has really kept us on target with our plans. When we, sit down and look at our calendar and decide when we're going to meet and when we're going to do specific tasks in the classroom, it's really easy to do in September when you feel like you have the whole year in front of you. But as the time rolls on and you start feeling more overwhelmed by what's happening in the classroom and the other responsibilities in the school, it's difficult to always meet those deadlines. So I think that Bruce Tuckman's stages of team development have really kept us focused. They have kept us on task, and they've allowed us to keep the meeting times professional. I've been in co-teaching teams before where it becomes a little personal and therefore a little catty. And because of those stages, it has kept us on task. We understand that it's not personal, that this is just the way it is, and it gives us a framework it gives us a framework to guide our discussions, which has been extremely beneficial and has allowed us to remain a very professional teaching team.
I think you have a shared vision of what you want your students to know and what you want your students to walk away from the classroom with in terms of the instructional experience and the cultural experience as well. And when I say culture, I mean just the environment, the learning environment, the shared learning experiences that the students have in your class. When you walk into the classroom, and also I think when students walk out of the classroom, it's very clear to them what's expected of them, and that the teachers want a specific, not only culture in the classroom, a culture and an attitude towards reading and writing. And ultimately what that is a shared vision of both teachers of what experiences they want their students to have. So in terms of, I would almost call that an instructional framework of sorts, that it's a shared vision of what you feel the instructional framework needs to be in the classroom. Whereas I think that in other classes, maybe those hard conversations haven't been had. And then also I think it's very acceptable for teachers to be independent, in a sense, almost cowboys in their classroom. And to have to share an instructional value is something that may or may not be something that's embraced by the instructional community. So we kind of look at it when it happens, it's lucky. If it doesn't happen, it's unfortunate. And but I don't know if that's good enough. I don't know if that's good enough, but I would say that's the one thing I noticed that is very different about the two of you in the classroom.